Okay, for our second example, go ahead and set up your grids the way we did our first one. And this time, we're going to take a look at the graph of r equals 2 plus 2 cosine theta. So now it's not just a plain circle, we've added some sort of shift. But how vertical shifts occur on this graph is something we still haven't really looked at. We definitely know how they occur over here though, so let's start with this one of y equals 2 plus 2 cosine theta. Okay, so let's think about our parent function here. A regular cosine would start at 1, go to 0, go to -1, back to 0, back to 1. So this would be if we had no transformations, as best as I can draw it. And then not only is it cosine theta, it's 2 cosine theta. So then it would get multiplied by 2, getting vertically stretched, which is kind of what we saw in the last video. And then we also have a vertical shift of 2. So we're actually going to move it up 2 from there. So this one becomes a 4, that becomes a 2, -1 becomes a +1. And then, you can kind of figure your way out through this, but often with vertical shifts, my hint to you is to shift the whole horizontal axis with it. So basically my new horizontal axis also gets shifted up 2, and then that makes it easier for me to be like, did I do this right? Because Miss Wright, the answer is no. This guy was supposed to be at 0. See? That's why I gotta do it. Alright. So this means my actual graph, oh, that was horrible. Concave down, concave up, just barely touching the x-axis, concave up, concave down. Looks something along these lines, for better or for worse. Let's write some points. So this first point is at a radius of 4 at angle 0. The second one is at a radius of 2 at angle pi over 2. This guy is at a radius of 0 at pi. Then we have a radius of 2 at 3 pi over 2. And lastly, a radius of 4 at 2 pi. And now we're going to try to come over here and plot these. So again, let's think of this in 4 chunks. All right, my first section here, again, corresponds to quadrant 1 over here. And in this particular section, it's going from a radius of 4 down to a radius of 2. So start at a radius of 4 at angle 0. And then in this first quadrant, we're going to transition from a radius of 4 to a radius of 2 by the time we get to pi over 2. But you should take that full time in order to accomplish this. I guess that's good enough. Sometimes you'll see them like a little more curvy. That's probably better. Like you want it to kind of like take up the whole quadrant. As much of the oh, that was bad. As much of the, I'm getting worse somehow. There, no, I can't. No. One day I'll get this. Okay, I really just drew that like 82 more times, but we're going to go with this. Okay, and now we're going to look in between pi over 2 and pi. In this section here, that corresponds to this. And in this section, it's going from a radius of 2 to a radius of 0. So I literally am changing from a radius of 2 to a radius of 0 over this area, taking up as much of it as I can, but also trying to, see, this is why it takes practice. I want it to look like it continued. It'll never be perfect. All right, that's good. We're just going to leave it there. All right, quadrant 3 here, we're changing from a radius of 0 back to a radius of 2 at 3 pi over 2. So we're going to kind of make the heart shape that this is, because it's a heart. It doesn't resemble any other object. And then, of course, the last section, we are going from 2 back to a radius of 4. You know what, I'm just going to pause it and say that was my first attempt. Okay, so this particular shape is called a cardioid because of how it looks like a heart. And the way you're going to be able to tell that these are going to occur has to do with the fact that it just touches 0, but it does not cross through it, and it doesn't just stay above it. It touches exactly one moment. And so it creates this kind of like little divot of the heart shape. Okay? And that's going to occur. Think about what's special about this graph and what we did. The amplitude and the shift had something in common. So that's what you're going to look out for on future examples. Okay? And just to get used to vocab, maybe go ahead and label this guy in your notes.